Hello, and welcome to Glory Be, interesting people and how they pray.
Each week, we chat about interesting people, about their lives, their work, and how they pray.
I'm Mike Malcom, and this is
Sharron Hanisch.
And
Father Vince Fernandez.
Well, this is kind of a off-script podcast. We're doing this for specifically people who are outside the Tulsa community, outside the Church of St. Mary community, just to get to know who we are. So, who created this? Whose idea was this? Whose fault is this?
This is Sharon's fault.
This is my fault.
Yeah.
So the backstory is, I didn't think Mike and Father Vince were doing quite enough.
Right.
No, that's actually a tiny bit of a joke. I noticed that other parishes were producing content for the pandemic, virtual content, and I thought it'd be a good idea for St. Mary's to do some things. I approached Mike, and I had a little idea. Let's do like a 3-minute sharing with Sharron. The next thing I know, I come in, and Mike has talked to Father Vince, and it's a big podcast and professional and a lot grander, but probably a lot more effective.
It's less about you.
It's less about me, yes. That was disappointing because,
Yeah, I don't think you can also, it's impossible to share with Sharon in under 3 minutes. So the idea was it wasn't going to happen anyway.
Good point.
You're a natural podcast person because you can talk for a long time.
Right.
It works.
I've been told that before, yes.
Yeah. So the idea was that we would make it about prayer, but also interviewing interesting people.
Right.
So, how do we come up with kind of that reason to be for a podcast?
I think we wanted something that was uplifting in these kind of difficult times, something that brought more joy and ideas of how to find God. What would you say?
I would say so too. And it's always kind of interesting. Like, people rarely share their prayer lives, right? That's definitely not like a first aid topic or whatever, right? So it's kind of cool to hear like all these different people, what is their relationship with the Lord? How do they kind of work on that in their, different fields and different, vocations, and, how do they kind of grow closer to the Lord?
Yeah.
That sounds good. So we interview people because they're interesting. And people in the St. Mary community and in Tulsa, they know who we are. They have a pretty good idea. For people outside, in 2 sentences, can you do it?
No.
Who are you, Sharron?
I am married. That is my vocation. I have 4 children. I do have a degree in theology from Weston Jesuit School of Theology, which was, interesting fun fact, paid by the diocese many years ago. And I now work for the Church of St. Mary part-time. I am an identical twin, which I think is kind of interesting. My sister lives in California, yes. And that's the best I can do.
That was 10 sentences.
Yeah. Once again, impossible.
Impossible.
Yeah. Keep her down.
Father Vince, how about you?
I am a priest for going on my 3rd year. This is my first assignment here at St. Mary's. And I do priest things. Mm-hmm. So there you go, 2 sentences.
There it is. I am Mike Malcom. I have been working for the church for 25 years, which includes a 3-year stint about a decade and a half ago doing another podcast called Today's Young Catholics.
Right.
But I'm not young anymore.
True. Mike, you do have some kind of degree in theology or
somewhere, yeah. Yeah.
Something that gives you a little cred.
Maybe. I have a BS in natural science with an emphasis on genetics.
Oh, wow.
From the seminary.
Okay.
So kind of a weird thing. I thought about seminary. I thought about priesthood very seriously for 3 years and got my undergrad degree from St. Meinrad Seminary. But it also carries not just the philosophy and theology, but it was a real degree too. So, not that I'm making fun of your degrees, but
and you're married
and an empty nester.
Empty nester, 2 children.
Yep, 2 kids, long gone.
Okay, so Mike, how do you pray?
I have a couple different ways of praying. One is a very selfish thing. I learned that back when I kind of graduated from the let's all pray the grace before meals prayer, let's all pray in our Father together, those rote prayers, which are great. It's the foundation. It's good. But then I moved probably in my late teens to more of a very open and honest conversation with God. That is something that I'm very selfish with. It's my time with God, and I need to take time out of my day to have that time with God. Other times, especially working for the cathedral like I did for 21 years, I did a lot of serving at Mass, emceeing Mass, making sure the logistics go on. And that kind of prayer is work. Right. And so my work is so that other people can really pray. But I was very careful, and still am, to have time for myself. And I don't deduct it from work time or whatever.
Right.
But if I'm streaming Mass, I'm really not praying. I might incidentally pray, but I'm working hard so that other people can. So prayer is something that happens usually at home, in the car, sometimes at work when I have a quiet moment. But it's very compartmentalized and different from that public prayer. Sometimes it's, beautiful singing, beautiful corporate prayer, but it's something that's the deep prayer is just mine.
Right. Yeah. And it's kind of like the same thing in the life of a priest, right? Like I would say it's very similar. My prayer is my holy hour in the morning, like right when I get up, do morning prayer, officer readings, and then like read the gospel and do some like mental prayer, right? But then like when I say Mass or do a baptism or any kind of liturgy, I am praying there, but that is definitely more work, right? And sometimes it is like nourishing for me, right? And it definitely helps my relationship with the Lord, but a lot of times it's, I'm focused on kind of the other, right? Or offering that sacrifice to the Lord and things like that. But yeah, that's kind of a good like distinction to make. There's like the personal prayer, which is like so necessary to have, right? Because then all this other stuff you can't really do as well, right? If we're not having that interior life being fed, right? If our work is our prayer, then it's like, well, you're just gonna, right? You're not gonna bear a lot of good fruit there, right?
You're following a script,
right? Yeah.
How about you, Sharron?
Well, I am like the two of you. For me, I get up and I always do some kind of a morning offering. I have a prayer space in my room, and I have, when I enter into that space, it's kind of as if I'm entering into the presence of God. I might light a candle. I might, sit on a cushion, and I almost always have some kind of scripture, or maybe right now I'm working with the St. Patrick prayer, the Christ with us, Christ before us, Christ beneath. Anyway, so I try to start with whatever prayer that I'm working with to orient me. And, as you all have joked, but I'm really good at talking to God, telling God what I need, asking God for help. So what I'm working on now is just being in the presence of God. And so, particularly during the quarantine, what has really been good for me is to go outside and sit on my back porch. And that's how I begin my day. Well, I begin my day before I get out of bed with an offering. But then to go outside, to open up whatever it is that I'm praying with, I do think that so much for me of how I behave in my family, in my workplace, is dependent on if I'm praying well.
Right.
Or at least if I'm trying to pray well. That interior life, if I have a good connection with God, then the life that people observe about me is much better than if I'm forgetting to take that time out. So I'm a work in progress.
Yeah. There's a great I guess it's called an axiom, scholastic axiom, or it's non habet nihil datum. You can't give what you don't have. And I think that's very real in like prayer, right? Like, I can do all the stuff I need to do as a priest, but it will not be as graced if I'm not praying, or as a mom or as a father or in your work here in the church, right? There's always gonna be something lacking if there's a lack of prayer in our lives, and how important that really is.
Yes. And sometimes for me, one reason I'm interested in this podcast is because the world feels heavy right now and uncertain. And so I know I need to be praying. So I don't need to pull out my phone first or turn on the news first when I get out of bed, which can be something I can do. I need to pray first.
Right.
I'm in awe of you guys. I'm not a morning person. I'm not a morning prayer. God doesn't hear from me before a certain time. And it's, Monsignor Dorney, retired priest here at Church of St. Mary, he talks about be sure to set aside the first 30, 60 minutes of your day and give that to God. Give God the first. It's never going to happen for me. And God gets better quality later on once I'm asleep.
Yeah.
Well, that's, for me, people have said, like, do the examine at night. Look over your day. Where did you find God? Where did you turn away from God? My head hits the pillow and I'm out like a light. I cannot do that examine at night. So I like that everybody gets to find sort of, God draws their heart, like maybe you're better in the day, I'm better in the early morning.
Early morning for sure. But I'm also not a morning person, so I have to force myself to get up because it's hard for me to, if the day's going and I'm trying to do a holy hour like 5 o'clock, it's like, I'm just going to fall asleep.
In your time in seminary, I went to seminary back in the early 90s. And so things were still kind of free form, I guess.
Right.
I think your experience in the morning was probably more structured in seminary than mine was.
Yeah. I went right out of high school, and at St. John Vianney in St. Paul, Minnesota, we had a holy hour at 6:15 every morning. So we would do that and then mass 7:15 afterwards. And that was so hard for me. As like a 19-year-old, you're just like, what am I doing? Getting up at 5 o'clock and sitting from an adoration, for an hour in the morning. But then eventually it's like, oh, this is actually my lifeblood. This is how I get through my life. Is if I don't do this holy hour, then, might as well just go back to bed because it's, my lifestyle. But then I carry that to, major seminary. And now it's like, if I don't do that, then it's kind of.
Well, especially because your assignment here starts with the 6:30 mass every day publicly.
Yeah.
So that's early.
Yeah. But then, the great thing in the rectory, we have a chapel right there. So I get him at 5 o'clock. I just roll out of bed, my PJs, and talk to Jesus right in the morning, right? And then I can get ready for the day. So that's what I really love is I can just wake up with the Lord, right? And as the sun's coming up, I'm in there, sipping coffee, and so
yeah.
Do you guys have favorite prayer memories? Sometime you were praying and it was just awesome.
When I was in college, went to volunteer with the Glen Mary missionaries in Kentucky. I still think this may be one of my most profound experiences. They had a mass kind of outside in the mountains, the Appalachian Mountains, and I just remember being kind of overwhelmed by the feeling and the presence and the belief that God was there in the Eucharist and in the beauty of nature. So I have had some transformative, but that's one that just pops to mind.
Yeah, one time, so like I said, in college seminary, I was 18 years old, just very raw, as most 18, 19-year-olds are. Get thrown into seminary, and I remember probably beginning of my sophomore year, I was in the chapel, just praying adoration, and just having a rough time of why am I here? Why is the Lord calling me to be a priest? I hate everything. I hate getting up at 5 o'clock. I hate, studying philosophy. I hate not being able to talk to girls. This is the worst thing in my life, right? And I just remember just making that prayer to the Lord in the tabernacle and be like, what do you want from me? What do you want? I'm here. I'm doing your will. And I just hear this voice in the back of my head that says, Vince, I want everything. I want you to give everything. And that was a point in my life where everything kind of switched. And I would say almost that moment is where I was not 100% sure, but that was a point where I was like, okay, I am fairly positive the Lord's calling me to be a priest. And that only kind of grew. But that was a real turning point where I was like, oh, no, the Lord wants me to give him my whole life, whatever vocation it is. And turns out it's the priesthood. So I just remember, before that was just very vivid memory because I remember feeling very overwhelmed and, upset with my life. And then the Lord's like, no, actually, I just want you to lay down your life for me. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. That's it? Okay, that's fine. I can do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How about you, Mike?
A few examples. I think my favorite setting, I suppose, was I was probably 21, 22 in seminary. They required that we prayed, Monday through Sunday. Just the whole week. But Friday night evening prayer was optional. And so only the people who wanted to go, who were on campus at the time, would have to do it. The chapel did not have air conditioning. It was kind of primitive. And so they'd open up the louvers on the windows. And sometimes the sun would hit just right, throwing stained glass light into the chapel, natural light coming in above and below the windows, praying the psalms, whatever chant tone that we were using. And it was just all the sensory experiences matched up with an interior prayer with God. And it just seemed like, bing, everything harmonized at that moment. And that was really nice. But it was probably more of a sensory, emotional thing than anything else. Yeah. But still, it was an event.
Yeah. Would you say like the Meinrad Church is one of your favorite places to pray? Maybe a place.
Maybe. I don't know. It's kind of wherever I am.
Okay.
I don't have favorite places. I remember being 17 at my childhood parish of St. Pius.
Okay.
Christmas Eve Mass, and just having a profound experience.
Right.
You can't predict when it's going to happen.
Right.
It just happens. Then times at Holy Family Cathedral, just random days, daily Mass, or sometimes just a quiet moment when I'm walking through the church, just going about my business. I'd make it a point to pray, and loved that.
Yeah.
You guys have favorite locations?
Yeah, I'd say there's a few. One, it's kind of fun. It's the Bishop Kelly Chapel at the Bishop Kelly High School. And really, I just my soul just kind of rests there. Every time I walk in, it just kind of, it's very quiet, and because none of the kids come to the chapel, unfortunately. but it's just a great place. And I think for me, maybe it's a lot of it's nostalgia because that's where I started growing in my faith, So there's kind of a return back from the journey, right? Oh, here's this chapel again where I first started praying, and then kind of go back to it. So there's a few times I was able to say Mass there, and it was really awesome. I was like, oh my gosh, I just remember, being a high school senior and, going to Mass with two other people, right, in that chapel. But that's one of the places. I had a priest, spiritual director, one time. He talked about places where his heart truly rests. I would say Bishop Kelly Chapel is that.
How about you, Sharron?
I too have a couple of places. So here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Children's Hospital at St. Francis.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Has this beautiful little chapel, and I just go over there and pray, even if it's got this glassed backdrop behind the altar, and there's a waterfall that falls down and under the chapel, and then the crucifix, of course, is hung. Anyway, it's just a very small, simple, peaceful place that I like to go and pray. I also love Eastern Point Retreat Center, which is in Massachusetts. It sits right on the ocean. For me, I need to live by the ocean. Here I am, landlocked Oklahoma. But I have great experiences of God in the presence of large bodies of water, I guess. I don't know, but anyway.
Just go to Grand Lake. You just go to Grand Lake.
Grand Lake, but you can see the other side of Grand Lake.
That's true, yeah.
As you get older, maybe your vision will decrease.
So you can't see as well. Yeah,
yes.
Makes sense.
We'll lead you out there, tell you it's the ocean, and you'll be happy.
Right,
You won't know
good
the
point.
difference. Yeah.
I'm open.
Yeah. So let's wrap this one up. This is kind of a meta podcast where we're talking about why we did it and our hopes for the future. We'll let this have a nice long run. We've got a guest list that's a mile long, all kinds of interesting people. But I think the idea is that this will go out Thursday mornings at about 8 o'clock. And it'll be available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Google Music, Breaker, all kinds of distribution platforms. So thank you for listening. And if you like it, tell a friend. Let's end with a glory be.
Excellent.
All right.
Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.